Greetings and welcome to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a sometimes funny, trying to be smart podcast covering all things new and classic Trek. Long live the Empire. I am your Captain Mariah Gossett. With me on the view screen, we have
Clyde Haynes. Long live Terra Firma, maybe?
Solid Ground is good to have around. Yeah.
Wow, that was my line, Clyde. Like we
Sorry.
were literally talking about that
But
ahead,
I
and
didn't know you were going to go there, Paul. Like,
you snaked it. Very
I
terrorist of
know
you.
you have another one
Very
in your back pocket. I
very
know you have
terrorist of
another
you.
one in your back pocket because you're that type of guy. Like, I'm
Yeah,
going to keep talking for like 2 more seconds and you're
yeah.
going to come out with something that's even better. Watch him. Ladies
Okay,
and gentlemen, watch Paul do his thing. Go ahead, Paul.
1, 2. Hi, I'm Paul. I'm
I am Paul.
I'm
Okay.
Paul.
Yes, tonight we are talking about Terra Firma Parts 1 and 2, which was directed by Omar Madha, Chloe Domont. Wow, I can read names tonight. Story by Bo Young Kim, Erica Lapolte, and Alan McElroy. Teleplay by Alan McElroy and Kalinda Vasquez. First, just a couple of reminders. We, one, have exciting news. We're on Blue Sky, y'all. We're
Blue
finally off the terrible place. So, yeah. So join us over there. It's at Star Trek Disco Pod. You can find us at Star Trek Disco Pod over on Blue Sky. Come visit us. You can also subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Did you all know you can also leave comments if you listen on Spotify? So, like, tell us what you're thinking about. What you think about what we talked about, and probably the many forms of hot dog talk that occurred. What form
dog.
of food do you want us to go on a tangent about? Let us know. You can also visit StarTrekPod.co, where you can find links to join us over on the Patreon and get access to the community Slack, where lots of things are happening all the time with really lovely people. And if you're hanging out with us tonight, Clyde, how can people chat with us on the U of the Tube?
Well, it's very, very simple. Pictograms. So just whatever you thought, put them into pictures that form phrases and words, and we will decipher them live on air. Riveting podcast material, I promise you. No, seriously, just type capital P, capital O, capital D, capital Pod in the chat, and we'll take a look at your comment, your question, your musing, your thought, your random notions, your conspiracy theories about terra firma and the Terran Empire. We will discuss it all. Just type capital P, capital O, capital D, capital Pod in chat. And then in a moment, you'll type capital H, capital F, capital HF in the chat, and we'll take a look at your overall thoughts about this 2-part episodes.
Indeed. And on that note, I think since these are, an older episode, it's time for a
cold free.
So maybe capital CF.
If you feel like it. How was revisiting these 2 episodes for y'all?
Good.
Mr. Satachet?
Good. I mean, I've always said, like, I'm not the biggest Discovery fan. That said, these 2 are some of my favorite episodes of all of Trek. So, like, I've always enjoyed watching this episode. This 2-part episode. It's it has a lot of things that I feel like shouldn't work but work. Mm-hmm. And I'm always going like, oh, like, take a swing of that bat. Like, like you go for the home run. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you hit, sometimes you don't, but it really hit, and I'm just always so happy when I watch it.
I mean, for me, I've got 2 words for you. And I'm still surprised that these are the 2 words that describe this 2-part episode for me. And that is Captain Killy. Still a winner. No, I really love these 2 episodes in particular because, for most of I'm into people development, learning, and growth. It's kind of a passion of mine. And so what we get to see someone who has had this experience that has changed them, and now they get to almost go back and take the test again, and we get to see Giorgio go back into her environment. So for all of the blustering that she says, and if we were here and if this was that, I would do this and that, we get to see the growth and the change in her, even when it's a reluctant change. And so just from a standpoint of seeing her in action, um, it's wonderful. And I think we are looking at Michelle Yeoh, some of her finest work on this series in these episodes. Like it's really good. So I enjoyed this, and I think I was kind of curious. I was like, we're gonna go back and watch this again, and I'm thinking we've done this episode a few times now, right? Like we did it originally. We've gone back and looked at it a couple times. Like we've gone back in the off season and done like mirror episodes. And so I was kind of thinking, like, what am I going to get out of it again? And this is one of those episodes, the 2-part episodes, that as I go back and watch it, I'm like, I'm still getting nuggets out of this every single time. Like it's like back when we had CDs, it's like a CD or an album that you play and you're like, man, it's been 2 years and I'm still finding gems on this record. That's what this was for me. So I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I think these 2 episodes really, I'm excited we rewatch them in prep for Section 31, because this is essentially where we're getting like Giorgio spat back into the universe from, right? So this is sort of where I'm assuming her mental state is going to be coming from. And one, it's an episode that to me, or these, I'm thinking about them together, but these 2 to me really give us, like you were saying, things that shouldn't work, but they do, like, and kind of jumping in from there, it is from the season that was the burn, which I know is not, I think anyone's favorite season of Discovery as far as like the way that that panned out. But these 2 episodes to me are part of the things that I so loved about Discovery, is that they're willing to let a slow build of characters happen across the seasons, and we see relationships change, and particularly the dynamic between Giorgio and Burnham, and how that's had to shift over time between original Philippa to Emperor Giorgio, and how Prime Burnham dealt with that, and then also seeing the version of the relationship that takes place in the mirror universe. And there was a quote I wanted to, I thought to me stood out from this episode at the end, after kind of like the big, fight sequence, is like, essentially she's like, there is no easy way to get out of complicated situations and for their relationship to have an ending. And so she's like, I know how this story ends if you die or I die or we both die. But as of this moment, our future is unwritten. So let's make it count, shall we? So it's kind of like, hey, like we know what these outcomes can be. So like, let's just take a chance on something that feels unknown. And that feels very ominous and interesting to ponder going into the movie. But what do you think is going to be something that's key to remember about Giorgio from Discovery as we move into the movie?
So I'll say this, because I was watching it. I was thinking about something that Paul said on the pod last week. So in conversation, Paul believed that you mentioned one of the things you're hoping for in the movie is more of Giorgio's backstory. Is that right? Did I catch that?
Sure. Why not?
So,
that sounds like me.
So I think that one of those things that I noticed, that I think I paid attention to probably really for the first time this one, was the opera like performance. And I was like, whoa, this is getting into some of her story,
or at least the like legend of the story,
the legend
right?
of her story.
What is the story?
Yeah. And I said, oh, so that kind of made me pay attention. Like I think I went back and rewound that piece to hear more of it, and going into the movie that comes out tomorrow. If you're watching this live on the 24th, that's what I'm going to be looking for, to see, like, does the legend line up if we get backstory? Like, and Paul, thank you for putting expectations on me. Now I feel like if I don't get backstory, I'm going to be disappointed.
Well, I'm that guy who
you are,
who puts high stakes on, like, a Star Trek
everything.
show, and like, either is this or this. I'm pretty, I'm basically, what's the portal's name?
Carl.
I'm the Carl of this podcast.
I did. That was the other thing that that made me laugh is that, he says, "My name is Carl." And it just made me think of like he's saying that to Sonequa Martin Green, who was on The Walking Dead and who's one of the
Carl.
characters was Carl. I kind of giggled when he said it. I was like, oh, I didn't really think put that again, something else that I put together.
Yeah, I was like, I hadn't
Just,
thought about that either.
yeah.
That's so funny.
Carl.
Carl.
Anyway.
How many ways can you grumble? The name Carl was like quite a thing my friends and I would make fun of when we first started watching Walking Dead.
It absolutely was. So yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. When we first started talking about this particular episode, I was like, I'm curious because this isn't really a Section 31 episode.
No, but it is,
a movie lead in.
Yeah.
Yes, it really is.
I'll be interested if, I might see if I can tag in a friend who's never watched any of Disco or anything and see if they would pop in for the movie, because I'd be very interested to see, because I think obviously there's so much hype around Michelle Yeoh, because one, she's Michelle Yeoh, but then two, coming off of like, her Oscar win and like Wicked, not, like she's just like banger after banger. And so I'm wondering if this will bring in any of those folks and what their thoughts would be without any of the same expectations that the rest of us might have about it.
I have to say, I'm also a little upset that Michelle Yeoh's been so successful in the last few years.
Yeah, that's right. Because you don't support women.
Yes, that's definitely it. No, I'm selfish. The real truth is that I'm selfish. Because I was talking to somebody else about this, and I was like, I have no doubt that this is going to be an interesting movie, right? Even if it's not, it's going to be interesting to me. It's a Star Trek movie, and I'm pretty excited. But I'm also disappointed because we're right now in this point where we're in between like series, and I gotta be honest, I was looking back at some of our shows, and I'm thinking, we just came off of doing Lower Decks and Prodigy. Like, it's been a minute since we've had an actual live action show to cover. And I'm thinking, and you stole a Section 31 show from me because I'm fairly confident that you can't get Michelle Yeoh on a week-to-week show. And I'm happy for her and a little disappointed for myself because, yes, looking back at it, I would have loved a series starring Michelle Yeoh that I could have tuned in for week to week for a minimum of 13 weeks.
You'll get her she's in the Blade Runner show.
It's not the same thing.
I know.
And I'll be honest with you, I keep trying with Blade Runner, but they haven't been hitting it out of the park. So they keep doing these remakes, and I'm like, whatever, man. So we'll see.
No.
But
go ahead, Paul.
I was gonna say, like, good for her. Like, I'm actually like, and this is gonna be sacrilege because here it comes. Here's the hot take in the cold freak. And look, I'm glad that we don't have a Section 31 show with her. Don't misunderstand me. Like,
I'm giving you an opportunity to clarify this craziness that you're speaking about. So please, by all means.
Because like you, Clyde, I don't support women. No, no, because like in a way, like like we mentioned last week, I liked her exit so much in this episode that seeing more of her might not actually be what I need, or more Giorgio character.
Yeah, I'm wondering if, like, to me, like, because the movie feels like a big team up, it feels very kind of Guardians coded in many ways, that it's essentially going to be Michelle Yeoh passing the baton to like some other characters who could have that potential. But it kind of coming back to Terra Firma, it's interesting because like through watching Discovery, right? Like we all have a very firm understanding of how this character has grown
Terra
and
Firma,
changed.
yeah.
And the whole thing is a test, right? Like the way that she kind of proves that she has managed to find her humanity, if you will. And so I'm interested in how you think that kind of character development can be portrayed to new audiences in something like a movie. And if her humanity is more tied to the relationship she had with everyone she built on Discovery, and if she's going to kind of fall into some of her I don't think as extreme of a way, but I do wonder how she's going to interact with these new cast of characters without having the same sort of, for lack of a better term, trauma bond with them, right?
Like, well, like in that way, like let's see, like did you guys watch Hacks?
Yeah.
Yes.
So so like I thought Hacks was like a hard the first 3 episodes. I was like, this is not as good as I want it to be. And then I watched the rest of it. I go like, this is amazing. And then I watched it again, like the first 3 episodes. I go like, oh, these are amazing too. I just needed some time to like adjust. What?
Yeah.
And then the second episode, second season, it landed so perfectly that I go like, they're done. They've solved the show. The show has landed so perfect. This is just the best show, and they could just end it here. And then season 3 came, and I was like very skeptical. I was very skeptical about like, oh, is it going to be a money grab? Is it going to feel like fresh and new? Like these problems that they're going to have, because they solved their season 1, season 2 problems. Are they just going to go back to season 1, season 2 for season 3? I don't see their problems in season 3. And if they do that, it's going to cheapen the product. But like they found new problems.
Well, what's interesting, just as a side note about Hacks in particular, is they pitched the show as a 5-season. They're like, we know exactly where this starts and we're exactly where this ends. And like, obviously things are going to ebb and flow a little bit in the middle, but they kind of had all their big plot points done already, which I think is part of the reason why it's such a good show.
And so as this, like, I like Emperor Giorgio went through a very solid arc. Like the thing that I would be disappointed in, and this is a concern for the movie, is that we're just going to go through the same problems she's had in the rest of the seasons, and like she's going to backslide. Like there won't be new things that like make me go like, oh, here's why I'm watching this character, as opposed to this character has come up with this great task, this great journey, this great gauntlet of things, and then she goes back to what we know. Because like
right, which I think is like those flashbacks that we saw in like the previews, I'm assuming are the way in for new viewers to understand this character.
100%.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm going
So-
to watch it.
Yeah.
Duh. Yeah.
I'll say this. I've been thinking about this a lot, right? Like I've been thinking about this idea of a movie versus TV, and really asking myself why. Now, I am not a professional like you two, but I have noticed that there was a time where TV was really about short stories. It was very episodic, and it didn't get too heavy, it didn't get too complicated. But we don't see that anymore. Now we see TV.
Have you watched
being
Matlock?
Yes, no, Matlock. Yeah, there's still some areas for that, but it has evolved to also include like really long form storytelling, right?
Yeah,
like,
100%.
and it's become, to me, TV has probably become the best place for book adaptations, right? Because you can get much more story, you can get into character development, like you can go on for forever, right? Like, a movie is 2, maybe 3 hours. A book is more, up to 20 hours, right? Like a movie is a TV show is up to 20 hours. So when I think about this and I think about what we're looking at, Mariah, you said this earlier, I'm kind of expecting something that's a little bit more Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Like there is I'm kind of starting to expect there's going to be a thing that they come to overcome, some type of problem that
like an Infinity Stone.
Not quite like an Infinity Stone, but like I don't mean like Avengers where you're talking about 2 movies. I'm talking about like the original Guardians of the Galaxy. You're going to come in, there's a
There's a
beginning, a middle, and an end.
yeah, it's like
And it's
there's
a
a threat
story.
to the universe and only you can solve it, you know.
Right.
Like in Guardians, it was an Infinity Stone.
Oh.
But what I'm not expecting, I'm not expecting super character development or
Yeah.
change it or really changes or even wholesale additions to the
Sure.
canon in which we've that's already been
Yeah, yeah.
established.
No, that seems like
Yeah, I'm expecting a pretty firm continuation from the JoJo we've come to know and love,
Mhm.
and that the movie is just going to give a way to introduce it to new viewers throughout in some way for them to understand why she is the way she is. And I think, you know, Terra Firma does a good job of you know, to your point, it's some of my favorite episodes of Disco, and I know Paul, you've said this a few times. Is like it is such a beautiful send off to that character, and like such an incredible way to wrap up of like, oh, we can see exactly where you came from and exactly where you are now, and how much of a shift that has been, even if you didn't realize how much of a shift it is. Because like, yeah, of course she's still snarky, and like will go like blow for blow with you, like with insults and take you to task and do things in a very non-traditional way. But her core truly changed in how she, I think, thought of herself and the people around her. And so the movie, I think, will be interesting to see how she continues the relationship with herself, and then also with like brand new people that she does, like I was saying earlier, doesn't have this kind of history with. Um, I'm also interested in how they set up more of the mirror universe, because if we're going to get backstory, you know, like you're saying, we got kind of the propaganda play version of it all. How did that actually all play out in real life? And I do wonder if we'll see any of our other disco crew make any appearances
I
in
did
the
not
I was
even
mirror
thinking
think
verse.
of
that
that.
too.
I did not even think of that. Probably not, because she's going back in time. But like,
Yeah, but I'm like, oh, are we going to see like a young Mirror Burnham? You know what I mean?
sure,
Like that kind of stuff could be
yeah,
kind of
yeah. No, no,
interesting and
no,
fun to play with.
no. I like it. I like it.
You know who when we're going back and rewatching Terra Firma, there's a character that I was like, you know what? I miss this character and I would love to see them in the movie, even briefly. And that was Admiral Vance.
Well, he's going to be in Academy. He's
Yeah,
confirmed for
I was
Academy.
just
So,
like, man, I was like the speech he gives Saru, I was just like, that's a really good
well,
speech,
Odin
man. Like
Bear is
that's
like,
pretty good job.
since the Mummy, heartbreakingly incredible human in my mind. Oh, Glenn Paris points out a really nice fact about the episodes too. It's like Michelle and Giorgio walking around in the snow is a great callback to the first episode of Discovery,
True.
I
where
did
they're
not even
walking
think of that. Like
in
where
the
the
Me
desert.
either.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very true. I think the other reason I enjoyed the episode so much is that it does kind of play with some of my favorite elements of the original series, in that there seems to still be some magic in space. You know what I mean? Things that are unexplainable, things that there isn't just techno babble to like tell us why and how this works. It's just Carl with a newspaper and a portal, and
Well,
like it's
he-
And
enough.
jokes. And
he's a
jokes.
guardian of the
Jokes.
edge of forever.
Yeah.
It's yeah, no, and it's just it's just like space magic.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting too, because if they are jumping to the 24th century, if I'm remembering correctly, is where they're jumping her back to. It's like this is the rise of cues, is sort of that era as well. It's when we really start to get any inclination of the Borg, like things we've never seen Giorgio interact with yet, which I'm also very excited for.
Yeah, I wonder how Terrence would deal with Q. Not well, I imagine.
What are there Terran cues? Like that's that
Oh
would
my
be
gosh.
like, or
That
do
would be
cues just
frightening.
span all universes and are aware of the
Like
mirror universe? But is
they
there a
they're
mirror
just one.
cue?
Yeah, the cues are constant throughout all the multiverse.
Yeah, that would
And
be
Q's
really
just go,
interesting.
man, Mirrorverse. I'm leaving that alone. Like them Terrans, that's not fun. That's
It's
just
not
crazy.
fun.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
they're
One of the things that I hate love in this episode is how arch Burnham is. She's just so arch, like in her acting and all her stuff. And I go like, this is not good. I love it. Like
Oh, just like how twirly mustache villainy it is.
exactly.
Yeah.
In a way, like it's just so over. But like
Well, yeah, so much of the Terran Empire is that though. Like the
I-
play, like mirror Anthony Rapp, mirror Burnham, mirror Tilly, like
and I think this is why I like the episode so much is because like everyone is all like twirly crazy except for Killy, who is just perfect.
perfection.
Thank you.
She will murder you in your sleep, but yeah.
But also like Giorgio is so grounded, and it just makes her character pop in a way that like in the Prime universe, she's actually so what you call it, so much stash twirly, and everyone
Mhm.
else. So it's a very interesting juxtaposition in a way that I'm like, oh, this is really
Yeah, it's how
layered.
you really see, I think the shift is like she now feels like a grounded, real complicated character
Yeah.
instead of just like a villain version of our favorite characters.
Yeah.
Like,
So
it's not just Spock with a goatee.
yeah, it's really it's very clever in a way that I don't like greater than I understood the first time. Anyway, this is,
Yeah, I think one thing that I came across, you mentioned the mustache twirly kind of arch.
yeah.
What I saw a lot in the mirror universe is this idea of you really can trust no one. Like it's there's a sense of everyone has a knife and will stab you if given the opportunity and motivation.
Wait, how is that different than here?
I mean, hopefully, you'll at least announce your presence before you stab me. But no, I think when we see the Prime universe, there's a sense like even Giorgio in the Prime universe is brash and arrogant. But to your point, she doesn't feel like she's just biding her time to slit someone's throat. Right? There's a strategy, there's a wisdom to it, and there's a different perspective, right? There's a hardened kind of jaded kind of perspective, but everyone else on those I'll say ships in the Mirrorverse felt like the only thing I'm here to do is to stab you if I get an opportunity. I'm looking for my opening to stab you and take your place. Like there was no one that you could trust. Like it was a very weird and honestly sad way to live your life.
Obviously, you are not a Sith.
No, I'm all
Definitely
Jedi,
not.
buddy.
I also really think these two episodes were really pivotal for Burnham as well. I mean, I know we're not going to get any Burnham in the movie, sadly, but I thought their goodbye was one of the better emotional. It
Sure.
felt beats that we've had, like even thinking back to the actual disco finale, which I know was like rewrite. It was like, oh, if we could all just have had this moment that they had, which is like when they're finally saying goodbye. And
You mean when they go like and they have their friend, the ship that has gone through them with thick and thin, and she's been in mothballs for the last 20 years with no one to talk to, and then all of a sudden it goes, hey, we're gonna take you out and like leave you in more deep space. That part.
I was talking about when Burnham says, "You are my Philippa," and like how nice that moment was.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's
one.
nice too.
Yeah, that one, and like the advice that that Philippa kind of leaves is like, hey, like don't be afraid to be a little bit Terran yourself, and like you and Saru could learn to lean on the bad side a little bit.
Break some plates.
Break some plates. Yeah,
Break some plates.
No,
good.
like it's like
also the costumes are so good. I'm so sorry.
oh
but,
my god,
the
Yes.
Mirrorverse costumes are like
Epic.
outstanding, and the fact that like for a 2-episode arc you had to outfit all of those background players in like all of that additional costuming is just like such an achievement of production and costume departments.
Well, and one thing I noticed this time around was that you had it's all this gold, right?
Yeah.
And they're constantly killing people. So you're just seeing people walk around with like blood stuck in the gold. Like but to your point, Mariah, when I think about that, the level of detail and costuming for this is just off the charts.
I always think the costume departments on all of all of our current Star Trek shows are just like really killing it on such a like a next level. I'm really like half the reason I keep watching the previews for for the movie is because I'm like, these costumes look great. Also, I mean, Michelle Yeoh can kind of wear anything and she's going to look like a badass walking across the screen. And I just hope they give her all the things that she can definitely do a lot of fight choreography in.
We'll see. We'll see. Like, I mean, I expect Mission Impossible in space.
Mission Impossible in space.
I
Glenn
kinda like
Paris.
Guardians of the Galaxy. I kind of like that.
Okay.
Yeah. What else was I going to say about these episodes? It just fully, I flew today and now my brain is like mush.
Well,
Oh, I guess like some good final words. She was from Burnham. She was a pain in the ass and she meant more to me than I could ever put in words. Giorgio was the wall I crashed into over and over again. She was a tormentor, but a truth teller. And she was a mirror I never knew I needed. And I like that idea of like a tormentor, but a truth teller, in that like, even when she was being like she
Awful.
truly like, well, like to use a word from like drag culture, like she threw shade, and like the core of shade is like, it's an insult, but there's a truth in there. Like that's what makes it that. And so I think the character was written so well in that she could like fully read people for filth in a way that was based in truth, but done in such an elegantly mean way.
Yeah, no.
And I'm excited for all of that to be back.
Yeah, totally. Like, I think one of the reasons why I find it so compelling, the episode, is because it balances the humanness and the jerkness.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, I think if the movie can do that, if the movie can like keep the human elements that the last two episodes like, they don't have to keep it, but like you need to hint
Ground
at
it. Yeah.
and then just have her be the mustache twirly that we've seen her be before. It could be really fun. Like,
Yeah, I think it's gonna be great. I wanted to ask, since we've been watching the Deep Space Nine and kind of seeing like that perspective on Section 31, and we'll do the final Deep Space Nine one, I think, after the movie, because I think it'll be kind of fun to compare and contrast a little bit. But in thinking about what we know about it so far, and just like, it's still very secretive. It seems to just be a lot of questioning in rooms. It's not as like, I think of what the version of spy work that Section 31 as presented in Deep Space Nine is not the same as we get in like a Bond or a Mission Impossible, right? Or like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It's not as much like combat and weaponry and like all of this stuff as of yet, right? It's mostly just like intelligence work and like people being mean to you in an interrogation room. So how do you think, how would you approach trying to like, I guess, bridge the gap? Because this movie definitely looks like combat, spy work, undercover things, like all of those things that we think of now.
I personally think that like they're just gonna let it go. I think spycraft in space future 24th century means very little, because you have devices that can like teleport you and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's gonna be Mission Impossible, Guardians of the Galaxy, whatever, kind of like action covert operatives kind of thing. Like, for all of it, like season 2 of Discovery didn't really do a lot for Section 31. There was no espionage and intrigue. It was just like, I'm a secret shadowy organization and I got ships that look like asteroids. And on occasion I have a like a nanite robot that's going to mess up my life. Like, I mean, and that's fine, but that's not, that's not like Sloan and adding like a virus to Odo when he's getting for his checkup, just in case he's gonna kill all the founders. Like, I mean that's some long-term thinking.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with Paul, actually. I think, Paul and I talked about this a little last week. If you're asking me what I want, what I hope, is something a little bit more like Slow Horses, where
Mm.
there's a mystery to uncover and it's somewhat complex and there's a twist, and at the moment you're like, what? I didn't see that coming. That's what I hope. But I think for something like that, you need longer than 2 hours to really pull that off. And so I think what we're gonna get is the Mission Impossible, Guardians of the Galaxy. I would say the thing that I'm thinking about is more like the movie versions of Sherlock Holmes,
Mhm.
where there's a mystery, but it's mostly, you know, Robert Downey
Following
Jr.
clues.
Fighting, right? Like,
Mhm.
and boxing and jumping over stuff. And, I think it's going to be fairly action and it's going to move. Um, and I think that's what we're going to get. That's my expectation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kieran makes an interesting point of like, I wonder if whatever Giorgio does in the movies what causes Section 31 to have to go deep underground like it was in Deep Space Nine. That could be interesting.
This is gonna be another hot take. Well, maybe not so hot. Cold Frake. Like I think the best action covert action movie that is also espionage that I go like, oh, this is really good for what it needs to be is Captain America 2. I know
I don't remember.
yeah, no,
I don't
go
know if
watch.
I saw it.
I just knew you were gonna say something like Sneakers or something, but
I mean, I
no.
love Sneakers.
Sneakers is great, but Sneakers is not
Pelican Brief.
it's not a really big action movie, right? Like, but like but like from the trailers we're seeing, like it seems like there's gonna be a lot of fighty.
Mhm.
So the way that works in like Captain America 2 is like here is Captain America and he's in the middle of this like big plot and he's trying to figure out the big plot and there are all these espionage kind of things like moving from one kind of mystery to another and at the end there's a big fight. Yes. And so in that way if Section 31 had that kind of format where you're like, oh, Giorgio, there's a spy, there's something, in the, something at the heart of Star Trek, and the Federation and whatever. And she had to go discover and then ultimately fighty. That could work. You know what? Third season of Picard was a little bit like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's very
But third season of
Picard.
Picard spent a lot of time in like, in some nebula, and yelling at Riker for not being able to be, for not shooting, or whatever. I don't know, like, so, but the Worf part was more espionage that way.
Well, Paul, you bring up an interesting point, right? So the two references that you've mentioned are Mission Impossible and Captain America, so Marvel, right? And when I think about those franchises, what they have in common is if I asked you how many like movies and sequels they were, you can't tell me. Right? It's a lot. And I wonder if that's the lure, that's the hook of doing that, right? So what we're all talking about is, truth be told, if we had a slow burn kind of espionage movie, you want one, maybe two of those. But if it's an action fighty twist kind of movie, you'll rival the Fast and Furious franchise with how many of those you can put together.
Yeah, no, like
I don't know
people
about that.
I mean, there's a lot.
They're pretty solidly in the lead, I think.
Yes. Pretty good there. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Marvel's making a run for it though.
It'll be interesting to see. I saw Alex Kurtzman did some interview and like, of course the headline was like, and updates on the future of Star Trek. And I was like, it's going to be like, I can't tell you anything, I was like, but I haven't actually read the article, but usually when I see those in a headline, it ends up being a nothing statement towards the end.
Clickbait.
Very clickbaity. But anyway, I digress. I mostly am like, I don't know if there is any plans for it to go forward. From what I think a lot of the future of Trek is going to also depend on how Popular Academy kind of rolls out too. So,
or the House of whatever.
Of rock
rock lore,
yeah.
Blood and Honor.
Blood and
Well, okay, so
Honor.
speaking of popularity and what the
Mhm.
future, let me ask you this. Do you think this would have been better if it was released in the theater tomorrow?
I don't know. It's hard because
I think the answer is no.
I think
Just-
probably not as well, because
Really?
I think when it is a character that isn't like as zeitgeisty as like the original Star Trek like crew, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And like the fact that they've still been talking about making an additional like Kelvinverse movie and that hasn't happened yet. I also think your budget also goes way higher if you have to do a theatrical release.
Hmm.
Like for me, like everything Mariah said, and also a very simple thing is that if you have a character that not everyone knows, but enough people know that you like where do you balance for, right?
Because they're essentially banking on the fact that enough people who already have Paramount Plus are Star Trek fans and are going to watch this movie, right? Versus having to do an entire press run and marketing campaign to catch
Right.
people up on why this character is like the new Star Trek character you're going to love. This is the anti-hero Star Trek you're going to know and love, or come to know and love, is a much higher task than just releasing it to the people who are already going to like it. And then some people are going to additionally click on it because they're like, oh, Michelle Yeoh, that lovely actress who just won that Oscar and is also in that movie Wicked, I like, like.
No, that's true. Part of the reason you mentioned budget, and I was rewatching this, and Key comes into the room and looks, and she's looking at it. She was like, "Oh my goodness, the special effects!" Like she immediately realizes that this is no little budget show, right?
I mean, no, they definitely spent money, but it's probably on the same caliber as like doing a 2 to 3 episode arc of any of the live action shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like and they basically, I think the show was dead, and then Michelle won an Oscar, and he goes like, "Oh, we can do
And I
something
think
with
Michelle likes playing in this world.
Yeah.
Kieran was talking about like Michelle was really an advocate for getting the movie made.
Mhm.
So I think she's a big part of it.
He's like, "Hey, like I'm an Oscar winner. I'll take a little less money if we can make a movie." And then we're like, "Well,
Mhm.
sure, why not?"
Yeah.
And so there we go. Like,
Yeah.
like it's we just need some original Star Trek that like like the house of whatever
Of the House of Blood and Honor. House
yeah
of
or or Tao Shiar / Thought Police.
Mhm.
Tao Shiar Thought Police. How you like that?
Slow Romulans,
Slow Romulans,
slow
like
Targs,
oh
slow Targs.
no, Slow Romulans. This is it. Like so here it's Tao Shiar, but like these are
It's the rejects.
of
Yeah.
the Tao Shiar. Exactly, and
Taushiar misfits. There you go.
and
Yeah.
so like and they're making and what the movie does or the show does it just shows the duplicitousness of the Federation. Like imagine a show where you're with the people and you're like, oh, the Federation really sucks. They are trying to take away our share of the Star Empire.
But see, I think that's the thing that confuses me a little bit. I'm trying to
How
figure out what
are
Paramount.
Guardians of the Star Empire. Boom, that's the title.
There you go. Well, but so I'm looking and going, Paramount, what are you doing? Like, because to me, and again, I'm not on the financial side. I don't know what what is truly behind these numbers, but it seems like the amount of intellectual property you have at your disposal is almost infinite, because you're talking about like doing a show on Romulans, doing a show on the Klingons, right, from a different perspective, right? Like I've heard people say, man, if you did a show on the Orions, I'm watching every episode. Sign me
I'm
up.
watching every episode.
Right, there's so much ability for you to, there are characters that we haven't even explored or discovered, right? Like, you know what, can I get a show on the Excelsius? Like I kind of want to know, like take me, like, so much.
Yeah. I would love to see like a Sulu backstory.
right?
Captain
Or
series?
yeah, or you know what was what was the ship that Jean-Luc and Beverly
Stargazer.
Crusher's husband, the Stargazer? That's another one. Show me an episode on the Stargazer, right?
So
Like,
you say all this, Clyde, and the
uh-huh.
answer is actually like in 10 years you make it all this. It all might just be AI generated.
No, stop it.
I'm
Absolutely
just
not.
saying.
No,
Shut it all down.
I'm
I
just
won't
saying that.
watch it.
I will you not? It's Star Trek.
No. If it's
listen,
no, I won't
listen.
watch it.
In my
You-
field, we use AI generation for a bunch of stuff for training purposes.
Go
And
and dump my water out right now.
maybe in 10 years it'll be interesting, but right now I'm gonna be honest, it's trash. Like
Yeah, it's not
it's
good.
trash. Like I say this because we talk about AI all the time. I say it is a great tool for people who know what the hell they're doing, right? But it's not a substitute. If you don't know what you're doing, then it's just garbage.
Well, isn't that everything? Like if you had like one of those kung fu like whips with a little
The
spear at the
nunchucks.
end. No, and then you like they twirl it
Oh.
around. Like if you didn't know what you're doing, you're hurting someone, and that someone is yourself.
Yeah, but there's a sense that you can use that tool and get better, right? Like
Maybe
what you're talking about with AI
Welcome
is
to
the
AI
tool fights for you,
arguments.
that's right.
right?
Well, I don't think AI can even make a hot dog yet, so like I'm not worried.
Absolutely not. Definitely not with toppings.
Right. No.
Anything else going into tomorrow? Are y'all gonna watch the movie tomorrow? Are you spending time this weekend? What's your plan?
I mean, like I could watch it tonight because
That's
it
what I was
drops
thinking.
here at 11:30, right?
Mhm.
So like I can just stay up and watch. Hey, look at this. Karate, 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 karate. I'm a spy. I'm from the future, but from another universe.
Hey
As much as I want to deny sometimes my Star Trek nerddom, I think there's a high possibility that I'm going to watch it tonight. I'm not saying that I'm going to finish it tonight, but I have a feeling that I may start it tonight.
What about you, Mariah?
I'm probably gonna watch it this weekend. I want to have a bowl of popcorn and make it feel like a movie experience.
That's right. You should try to get someone who doesn't watch Star Trek.
I think I'm gonna see if I can find someone for next week to talk to us about the movie because I would be very interested in their take. So I'll ask around if I can talk a pal
You
into
know,
joining us.
if I didn't
if
live
I
in
had
LA,
friends, I could,
yeah.
but
I have
If
someone in mind. I'll see if they're up for it. Yeah.
if I didn't live in LA and I lived somewhere where I actually had space and had a
Final
nice
Frontier?
setup, but if I had
like a watch party.
like not even a watch party, but like to your point, I love the idea of what you're saying, like actually make it an experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I live in a shoebox, so that's gonna be hard to do. So
I believe in you. Make some popcorn, dim the lights,
I
play
got some,
the Nicole Kidman trailer before you watch it.
I
That's
got
right.
I got
Because
I got some skinny
here
pop that I can put in the
they
microwave.
are.
Yeah.
Like actually,
Heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
that's right. I feel that there's a missed opportunity where you can have like maybe one or two screens, and you could just like in LA.
They did do something in New York and I think something in LA. I saw some folks
Did
who
they?
got to go to some screenings. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's
So
good then.
yeah. But all right, y'all. Well, I hope everyone has their own beautiful experience watching the movie this week.
Yep.
We will be back next week to talk all about it so everyone can gather their thoughts, watch it a few
Yep.
times through. It's going to be a good time, I'm sure, because it's Michelle Yeoh kicking ass. So what else could it be?
What else
Hey,
could it be?
can I just encourage you guys, watch the movie, like really watch it and come next week. Like I'm gonna give you some homework. Come ready to talk and join us in this discussion.
Yes.
Right? Tell your friends. Like let's have this is a
good
big
hang.
event. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
have a good hang.
All right.
Reach out to those old heads who used to be part of the the community and bring them back.
Yeah, come hang out.
Talking about you, Phil. If you're listening, Phil, I want to see you in the chat, man.
Come on, Phil. Or you can leave us your thoughts in messages to the menagerie if you're a member of the Patreon. So you can visit us at patreon.com/Star Trek Pod. If you want to watch the movie, let us know and we can share your thoughts on the podcast next week after you watch the movie. We'll be back next week chatting section 31. I think that's it. Live long and prosper, y'all.
Yo, pew 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 pew
Bye.
pew.